I got sober again in 95.
Yeah.
And
like, how did that happen? Like, did you ever have girlfriends and stuff like that during this time, or
I had girls that I dated here and there.
Yeah.
I dated this blind girl that I dated this girl. This one of my earlier relationships was this really cool girl in my neighborhood, and she was blind, but she was so hot, and she wanted to do coke, and she asked me to do blow.
Yeah.
And I said, all right. I said, I'll come over, and she's like, you can come over to the house, and she literally said to me, I'll show you how to read Braille. I was like, this wasn't anything uncommon. It was like, great, do some blow and read Braille. So I go over her house, and she lived like right behind Wyman School, like a block away from me. And I go to the door and ring the doorbell, and this lady answers the door. And I'm like, hi, I'm Sean, and I got my hand out. And she's looking at me like this, and I'm like, I'm trying to put my hand out, and then I'm looking at her, and then I realized the mother is blind.
the
mother's blind too. And I got my hand out, and her eyes are like going up and blank and stuff. Yeah. So finally I was like, all right, I kind of gave her the old, I gave her the old move because I saw her.
Yeah.
I think it was Stacy. I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
And she was at the top of the stairs, and she's like, Sean.
Yeah.
So there was nothing uncommon. See, cocaine took away the normalcy. Like, it was all about doing the next line.
Yeah,
Are you blind? Get out of my way. I got to do a line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I went upstairs with her, and, you would think it was her first time doing blow. I'm not proud of this to the blind community. Please don't cancel me.
Yeah.
And I figured I'd give her if someone's blind and you're doing coke, you would think you would take the bigger line.
Yeah.
Not me. I'm like, here, take the small one, but I'm giving her the big ones, right?
Yeah.
And she's doing blow, and we're getting high, and she's starting to teach me how to read Braille.
She kept her end of the bargain.
She kept her end of the bargain.
To this day, you can still read Braille.
I'm all coked out, like closing my eyes. I'm going, like I'm trying to read Braille, and she's holding the back of my hand like it's some CBS afternoon special. And, we read Braille for a while. I got to fool around with her.
Yeah.
And, that went on for a little while. So she was kind of one of my first girlfriends, was the blind girl.
Man.
You know what I mean?
What do you have in common? Cocaine and Braille. That's where we really connected.
And let me tell you, we really did.
Yeah.
Cocaine does help you connect. You can talk a lot. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, boy, did she start talking. She couldn't see, but she could talk.
All right, so now we're into the crack years, Sean. It starts at 16. It's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah.
And would you say your childhood pretty much ended at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Stalled, haunted, done. Yeah. And my whole, everything was about getting that dope, getting to smoke another hit.
Yeah, that's what your whole world became about.
Yeah.
So from that first time, you just stepped into a new dimension, basically.
Yeah.
And you would stay there for a long time. Like, I mean, how long did it last? Like,
well, remember, it would go 3 months, and then I would crash, or some jackpot would happen where I either stole from my family or robbed a drug dealer or didn't pay my just because I was still 17 when this is happening. I'm not really doing big shit at this point. I'm just nickel and diming people. Yeah. But my credibility, let me tell you, my credibility, even as just a weed dealer as a kid, went just like, you couldn't, once they figured out I was fronting, like at 17, I started fronting 5 pounds. Yeah. And they were like, 5, that's a lot. Yeah. I knew it was a lot because I needed to sell it and buy crack and owe them money, and I'll pay them when I can. Yeah. So it was already the scamming, the stealing, the manipulation, the overtaking of my body, of just using, my body was like, okay, we are now going to turn into a con artist, and everything we're going to do is to make sure that we get what the body wants. It was like a lion who went into the fucking jungle every day and was like, listen, I'm eating. And that's what the monster of crack addiction is. It's eating.
Yeah. And you're 16. Like, how quick was it from that first hit into like full crackhead? You know what I mean? Like, how quickly does that happen?
Fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like within
fast.
a month, you're already on the
Oh,
street.
yeah.
You're doing
within
this.
a month.
Yeah.
Not scratching. Don't scratch on crack.
Is
Not
that a
scratch on Red Bull.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
you, meaning I was going into the ghetto and getting it, and because I didn't know how to cook the shit. I didn't know how to cook it yet. So there was a period between 16 and 17, late 17, that I was going to the ghetto and going to the heart of South Providence where it was dangerous. And I was going in on a mini bike, anything I could get to take me 4.5 miles into the ghetto and then back. And then when I would turn my friends on, I started my own middleman thing where those guys were too afraid to go to the hood, but I had no fear. By this point, I had no fear. And so I was that guy who went into the hood and brought back the crack for maybe 2 or 3 other suburban kids. And that was the beginning of that kind of scam, buying crack. It was just, there's never enough.
Yeah.
Never enough money. There's never enough crack. There's never enough.
What was it like? So you were 16, 17-year-old little ginger going into South Providence. Is that like the black part of Providence, basically?
Yeah.
And so how would you even find like crack spots? Like, what are you looking for?
At that time, crack spots were popping up like a pop-up store on Hollywood Boulevard. Yeah. They were like, business was open in the hood. Yeah. Like wherever you went, if you were white and you were coming in the hood, they were like surrounding your car or surrounding you to sell you bottles of crack.
So and they embraced you as the little...
I was embraced, yeah. I always was embraced by them. Thank you to the black people. Thank you for embracing me, even though you think I'm a racist. No, I'm not. Believe it or not, I get along very well with black people.
Well, you spent a lot of time out there, you know what I mean?
Listen.
You were there every day.
I was.
Yeah. You made
like
friends.
Being at Fort Wall. I was there every day.
Oh, man. So, like, 16 years, did you finish high school?
Yeah. Graduated high school.
Yeah.
I went to LaSalle Academy for my first couple of years.
Yeah.
And, the drugs were, kicking in and I quit in Austria. We went on a school trip to Austria.
So you had to be clean for that trip?
Yeah, but I smuggled not coke, but I took some acid and some weed on that trip.
Yeah, to Austria.
Germany, to Austria. That was a scary trip through Germany, through Munich.
Were you on acid in Munich?
No, I took it when I got to Austria.
Okay, well, you waited.
Yeah.
You waited till you were out of Germany.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not getting
When
high
I got
here.
to the mountains of Stubai Glacierbahn, I took a hit of acid and fucking went skiing on the best powder in a glacier in Austria. I was privileged, even though I had been dealing. You got to remember, this crack thing was like, even my mom didn't want to think that was happening. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I was hiding it. You remember, all this was being hidden.
Yeah.
So
you were somehow able to hide that from your whole family? Like, how long did that last before they figured it out?
Until about I was 18, and then it was over.
But about 2 years, you were able to...
I was able to keep it somewhat under wraps.
I mean, that's pretty wild to think about, like a 16-year-old kid, like deep in
I was a
addiction.
professional. When I say a professional, I timed it out.
Yeah.
Like if I was at school and I was at Pilgrim, and it was 1984, I'd be selling powder all day at school, and weed, and I'd wait till I got home to fucking freebase. I'd learned to freebase by that time, so I would be doing normal stuff during the day, and it would be a treat for me to come home and freebase. And George Clinton talks about that kind of treat thing.
That's how I know you're a man of the people, Sean, because you had access to all the powder you wanted, but you chose to smoke crack. Yeah. You're a man of the people.
Yeah.
No, because that's what it was, right? Like basically, white people generally snorted. Like it's more expensive, right? Like that's the idea. But crack, like that's what goes into like the hard Scrabble communities. That's the people's version of that. But you were hard into crack, not cocaine. You weren't really snorting.
Oh no, it was, but I would.
But you would cook it, right?
I preferred smoking it.
Yeah, it just hit you harder. Like, it was
I just preferred smoking it.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Damn. You're like the white dude who smokes blunts. You know what I mean? You're like, it's a little different.
I can't stand blunts. They make me want to puke.
Okay, never mind.
Never mind. I smoke a lot of weed, but if I smoke a blunt,
Yeah.
I can't smoke any kind of cigarette or tobacco or I fucking go into fucking la la land.
Well, let me tell you, do you drink Hennessy?
I used to.
All right. You are one of the people.
Let me tell you about cognac.
Yeah.
Hennessy VS, very special. Hennessy VSOP, very special old pale.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hennessy XO, extra old.
Oh,
King
wow.
Louis XIII, about 600 a glass.
Yeah.
That's the shit I used to drink. I was a big ego. Like, as time went on and I got more, you know, I learned how to afford crack and coke. It was like instilled into my budget by the time I was.
No, okay, so that's what's kind of crazy. Like, I've heard a lot of your stories, Sean, but it sounds like you got very good at.
Oh,
like,
yeah. I got good at hiding it. I got good at, you know, I became like a master manipulator.
Yeah, but you also got good at just making money to fuel this habit to the point where you could live a certain lifestyle too, right?
Yes.
All right, let's talk. I remember you mentioned to me one time.
Well, I remember. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, like you did a lot of hustles. Like you figured a lot of things out. It actually kind of just makes me think that if crack weren't in the equation at all, like you weren't smoking it and you were just raising the money, like you'd have been very rich man.
Yeah.
You know, it's the part of doing the drugs.
Millions.
Yeah.
Oh, I would say $1.3 million.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. Industrious. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
like,
well, I'll tell you, Carl the dentist.
Yeah.
A year later, I asked him because I was going to turn 18 and I was going to get some money from my modeling career. I said to Carl, I want a kilo. And he's like, Sean, a kilo is $60,000. I said, well, give it to me. I'll pay you in a month or when I get my money from my modeling. And he gave me, and a kilo back then wasn't a brick. It was a ball. And it was fluffy and it was just the most beautiful. If it was in this room right now, I would do it. That's how good that Coke was. I would go off the deep end and do it.
Yeah.
He gives me the kilo and says, Sean, once you leave with the kilo, you owe me $60,000. And remember where my mind's at. I haven't even gotten my money yet, and it's certainly not going to be $60,000. So I walk out of there. I had a customer in Gaspee Point, a rich kid from Gaspee Point. He wanted it for $60,000. He had the money. I'd been to his house, saw the money. He's waiting for me at the house. This is how I could afford doing what I was doing. I took the kilo at 60. I took half of that kilo and busted it in half and put another 1.1 on top of it, mixed it all up and zipped it up into a hard thing. And it was still the most beautiful Coke you could buy. And then sold it to him for $60,000. But I now got a half a kilo of pure cocaine that's worth $30,000 wholesale.
What'd you cut it with?
Inositol, B12 or inositol.
Wow.
So you asked me how could I afford it? There were times where I made deals like that and I got lucky. I remember waking up with nothing and by the end of the day I had $20,000. Coke was fucking you could just make it happen. If you had the deal, if you had someone who wanted it, it could be a very instant money. But what comes along with instant money is instant gratification and there's never enough. There's never enough. I can't express it. There's never enough.
It's never enough. Like, so how did you, like, what were some of the things that you got into? What were some of the schemes that you got into to figure this all out?
Well, I bought, before I started smoking Coke, I was taking VCRs. Yeah. I was buying VCRs from people.
This is when you were in high school?
Yeah. Because people were already, cocaine was hitting hard, the powder angle. Yeah. People were stealing VCRs for crack and powder cocaine from their homes.
Yeah.
And I was buying VCRs. So I had 200 VCRs in my basement.
How old were you at this point?
15.
And that was just a hustle. Like,
That was my side
This was a
hustle.
pre-coke hustle.
Yeah.
So you already had that hustle in you, right?
Oh,
from the
I
beginning.
always was a hustler. I can
Yeah.
remember I learned from I was
Yeah.
I was definitely on my way to being a good hustler.
So what you were buying VCRs from?
Buying VCRs, and the funny thing is when I started smoking crack,
Yeah.
I had a wall of VCRs. When I started smoking it, they went brrrr,
Yeah.
brrrr, and then I'd stop smoking crack for a month, and they go brrrr,
They just come back.
brrrr, and that was kind of like my crack stock market.
Yeah.
It was really pretty, and that's
Yeah.
how much money. Sometimes I knew how much money I had.
Just
If I ran out of money from
yeah.
coke money or whatever,
Yeah.
and I was down to the last $2,000 of coke money,
Yeah.
I would look at the VCRs and say, "Oh my God, how much do I got?" And I'd look at the amount of VCRs, and I'd be like $20 a piece. And that was how much money I had, because you got to remember, all the money that was coming in from any hustle was going to crack. My parents, I think, thought I was saving it.
That's just funny to me. Like, I don't need to look at a bank statement. I got a wall of VCRs. I know exactly how I'm doing right now. What happened? When did you ever get to a point? Did you ever get to a point where it's like, I'm down to 2 VCRs? I don't know what I'm going to
Oh,
do.
I remember selling the last one.
Yeah.
The last one was the toughest, because I was really in the throes of crack addiction,
Yeah.
and I had stolen. This is the scumbag part of it. I had stolen a big bottle of change from my dad in his closet. So I took the VCR. Oh, this was a bad night.
Don't feel too bad. I think your dad stole that from you when you were hustling coins. he took that shot. That had been in there for
I
10
never
years.
thought of that.
You were just
never
taking
thought
it
of
back,
that.
Sean. You were just taking it back. But
So
anyway,
I
you
took this big
yeah,
fucking, it was a Canadian Club bottle, a big plastic Canadian Club bottle. And I took that and my sole VCR, stole my father's car in the middle of the night, snuck it out of the driveway, put it in neutral, rolled it out, and started it and screwed, because that's what you did if you had to get to I went to a crack house, the most dangerous crack house, and I show up to the crack house, this white guy with a VCR and a big, huge bottle of Canadian Club plastic change, and I'm like, oh, and they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So they let me in.
Yeah.
And they immediately give me a couple of hits of crack,
Yeah.
like in a crack house. So now I'm in the.
They just give that to you as like just because.
Well, because I have this big thing of quarters.
Oh, okay, all right.
So they were like, oh, they took that bottle from me immediately and the VCR.
Okay.
They confiscated that the second I walked in the door. And then I took my first couple of hits, and they had the change all piled up, and they were counting. I'll never forget how scared I was. I was like, I think I have no fear because of situations like this.
You've been in a lot of those situations.
I was fucking looking at these guys. They were counting the change,
Yeah.
and they kept giving me crack, and I got so scared. I said, just give me some to go. And they gave me some petty amount, and I left. And there was some crackheads outside that door that night. And I almost died there. And I managed to get the car home. And my dad was waiting in the kitchen when I pulled up in the car with the crack and all cracked out. And he was fucking...
Did he know what was going on?
He knew something was up. He knew, yeah. By this time, they knew there was a problem.
Yeah.
And it was rearing its ugly head by this kind of behavior, because he knew his change was gone. He heard me take the change.
Man, how common is that? Like, when you walk into a crack house, do they give you samples? You know, they do that.
Yeah, they do. They do that.
So it's kind of like C's candy. You walk in there, they give you a chocolate to try to entice you to
absolutely.
try the
Crack is the
different
best sample you can give.
Oh my god!
If you're gonna give somebody a sample and get them hooked,
Yeah.
C's candy isn't gonna listen.
Yeah. Because they got me yesterday, so I can't even imagine, dude. Yeah,
I can tell.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I love Mark.
I'm like trying to
know
like,
what I mean?
hey, how's this shirt, Sean? Like,
Yeah,
if I
yeah,
keep these buttons, do I look less fat?
He looks great in the Block Island shirt, everybody.
I'm very happy with this
He's
shirt.
representing.
We both are. We
Yep,
both are.
this shirt was given to me by my mom at 18 years of sobriety.
No kidding. Look,
Yeah.
it's a nice shirt.
Yeah.
So we got to give a little toast to Block Island.
Yeah, let's hear my friends on Block Island. And let me say a little bit about Block Island, that my community on Block Island is my heart and soul. And that all my recovery and all the stories I tell are just that, my past. My future has been a future of redemption and recovery. And I'm blessed to still have friends and people who stuck by me on Block Island and and I can't stress to you enough how much I love my people on Block Island, and I love Block Island.
No, thank you for that. That's beautiful, Sean. It really is.
Yeah.
And for all you people on Block Island, I want you to know that Sean is a beloved member of the LA comedy scene, and he's part of the family of Fourth Wall, and he's found a home here and a lot of close friends and stuff like that.
It's really nice.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get back into the crack.
All right.
All right. So look, like at this point, like you're hustling, dude. Like you're figuring out ways. I mean, yeah, it's kind of. I mean, there's a certain amount of like there's an entrepreneurial spirit to it that you got to respect to a certain degree. But obviously, you know, it was making you do things that you didn't want to do, like stuff that.
Oh yeah, like listen. Like I said, at 16, everything took to the wayside. There was no more kids stuff. There was no more normal. Everything was changed. And no matter if I got off the crack at 17 for 2 months or 4 months, I was always in the back of my head that girlfriend. It's like a girlfriend. Imagine falling in love with the most beautiful girl in the world at 16 years old, and she's 18. And she's the most beautiful piece of ass you've ever had in your life. That's what cocaine was. There was no girlfriend. That was my girlfriend. Yeah. That's why they call it the lady, because you didn't need a lady. That was your girl. You know, everything you would have given to a girl or a life or anything, it just wasn't happening.
Wow. No, that's a great analogy. It's kind of horrible.
And I will say, I mean, we'll get into, you know, you asked about how I made money. And now I stumbled, let me tell you, this is why I get very, you know, like when I look back and I tell the story, it's like so kooky because I'm like, I wanted to be off drugs. But every time even, you know, this is one story.
Yeah.
I went to, in 1984, I went to a treatment center called Edge Hill of Newport. In 1984, Edge Hill was built on a mansion ground in Newport, Rhode Island. It was the highest end treatment center in 1984, besides the Betty Ford Clinic in Malibu, I believe.
Okay.
So, when the shit hit the fan, and we're getting there, they sent me to Edge Hill for 28 days to get off coke. I do the whole program. I successfully complete the program. I go home to my family's home. 7 days after I'm home, Blue Cross sends a check to my house for $9,300 for the treatment center. I'm supposed to take the check and bring it to the treatment center. Well, obviously, I'm still a drug addict. That check went right to the bank and got cashed, and I went and bought 2 ounces of blow immediately. And then I realized back then in 84, if you went to any counseling, outdoor counseling or in-treatment counseling or overnight counseling or a 28-day treatment center, Blue Cross would send you the check. And you were responsible to give it to the treatment center. Yeah. Folks, I had counseling going all over town. And if you cancel, you could sign up for counseling for 12 sessions and just cancel it. And then they would charge Blue Cross, and Blue Cross would have to send you 12 sessions of a check for not even showing up. So I had checks coming in from Blue Cross that was just keeping this cocaine addiction alive. Yeah. That was supposed to be keeping me off coke. So the insurance money was providing me more coke money.
That's like the kind of thing. That's like the kind of irony that would have to exist, like within the world of addiction.
But let me tell you,
stuff like that.
Because of Sean Mahoney, that quickly ended in 1986, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Blue Cross was like, people like a whole bunch of people were going to treatment, signing up for 28 days, leaving after 2 days, and waiting for the check.
Oh my God, the old.
It was the bait and switch with addiction.
Oh my goodness! But who was ultimately responsible? Like, did your parents have to pay that bill? Like,
No, I was. My credit was ruined from day one.
Oh wow! So it was going to you because you
Oh
were
yeah,
already,
my social security number was all over it. My credit was ruined. By the time I was
Yeah.
20, I had no credit. It was ruined because of all the bills I had incurred and not caring about thinking I didn't have to pay bills or pulling that shit.
Go back for a second because I know you got there was a time you were in treatment, right? And you were in the same treatment center as Kitty Dukakis. And for people who don't know, Kitty Dukakis was the wife of Michael Dukakis, who was running against George Bush Sr.
Yeah.
And he was the presidential candidate at the time.
And Michael Dukakis was the governor of Massachusetts at the time.
All right. Yeah. So, all right.
So it's February 7th, 1986. And I am about to embark on my second tour of Edge Hill of Newport, which is, once again, the treatment center, a very high-end treatment center in Newport. This is my second 28-day stay. So I check in, and from the last stay at Edge Hill, you couldn't get on a co-ed dorm. Like, I wanted to be on a co-ed dorm so I could fraternize with the girls. But if you weren't gay or had gay tendencies, they wouldn't let you on the co-ed dorm. They said, "Are you gay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm having a lot of gay tendencies, I'll tell you that."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I think the coke and the crack has brought the gay out in me." And they were like, and so they immediately put me on the co-ed dorm, which was awesome because there was like so many hot chicks that were all frazzled on that dorm, and it was just awesome, right? So now February 8th comes, and my first night in treatment, I want to get out because I need weed. I'm a big weed head, always have been. So my friend Rocky, who owns the Pelham East in Newport, also owns, Dave Kilroy. I know people in Newport who own establishments. And so I sneak out of the treatment center to go to Newport to get a joint and go say hi to Rocky. These guys, unbeknownst to them, they don't even know I'm in treatment. They just think I'm just showing up in Newport like normal Sean Mahoney. So I show up to Pelham East, and Rocky's there. I'm like, "Where's Rocky?" And Rocky's like this big guy who runs shit. He's like, "Mahoney, what are you doing?" And as soon as I get in there, he gives me, I said, "I need a doobie. I need a doobie." So he gives me a fucking doobie, and he gives me a vial. He thinks I'm like just partying in Newport. And now I'm like, I got the doobie and the vial. And I'm like, I got what I came for. I danced a little, and I started walking back to the treatment center, which was like 1.5 miles at least away from downtown. I didn't even know. It was difficult to get there. I remember that. And I smoked the joint, and I see the coke in my hand, and I'm like, once again, not ready. I do 2 bumps of the coke. I do 2 more bumps. I put the coke in my pocket, and now I'm like, the guilt is now settling in like fog over San Francisco, over Alcatraz. Like, it's settling in like guilt. I can't believe I'm sneaking out. Blah, blah, blah. I get back to the treatment center, which is an old mansion, and it's got these walls, these stone walls around it. So I'm going over, and I'm sneaking over the stone wall. And I look to my right, and I hear, and I see this, what I thought was like a hallucination. I thought the coke was kicking in, and I was paranoid. And I see this guy dressed in black, like almost like a monster. And I look to my left, I see another one. It's no word of a lie. And I just fucking run. I start running towards the treatment center, like sprinting. And these 2 guys fucking are right on my tail. And I'm like, oh my God, who are these fucking guys? And the one guy who was big, 6'7" black dude, fucking muckled me, almost killed me, and fucking had me on the ground like, he's like, I'm like, and he's like, "Who the fuck are you?" And I'm like, "I'm a fucking patient here." And they reach into my pocket and they pull out my fucking, the coke. And they're like, "What, are you trying to check in?" I'm like, "No, I'm already checked in. I just sneaking back in." Yeah. And the guy's like, so these 2 they were the Secret Service. So they grabbed me under each arm and they dragged me into the office. Now, I'm such a scumbag. I'm like, oh, I got a lawsuit here. All I could think of was calling my lawyer. Like, as they're carrying me like this, I'm like, oh, I'm going to sue the fuck out of these guys, right? Whoever they are. Get to the treatment center, they're like, they get to counter. They tell me to sit down, shut up. They say, we're the Secret Service. And I'm like, why would the Secret Service be here?
Yeah.
Why in God's name? I'm like, I'm not that. Like in my head, I'm like, am I that important? Like my psychological said, well, maybe I am in the CIA. Maybe this is why they're here.
Yeah.
Like, you start thinking some crazy shit on Blow. And obviously they were there because Kitty Dukakis had checked in that night at like 7 o'clock. I was already gone, like literally gone. But they had been checking out the place. So how they didn't see me sneak out? Because they had just got onto the property. So... This is insane. So now my mom's all happy that I'm in treatment with Kitty Dukakis. Everyone's all happy that I'm like, Sean's in treatment with Kitty. He got muckled by the CIA. It's like now a big thing. And, so now now the CIA is taking over the treatment center. I mean, the Secret Service. So now I got to deal with Kitty Dukakis, who have caused now I'm a problem. I'm a problem with the Secret Service, who's now overseeing the treatment. And I'll fast forward to things weren't good with Kitty and I. Not good. We didn't like each other. So we used to have a thing called peer evaluation where you put one person in the middle of the room and everyone around the room goes to this checklist of, you think you're too smart. You think you're a gangster. Who do you think you are? You cry too much. You talk about your mother too much, or all of these things, and they beat you down all the way around. They're supposed to break you down and make you cry. So it's called peer evaluation. So I get in the middle. It's my turn. Kitty's there. Oh, and she's got her list ready. So I'm like, it was very surreal to be in the middle of a room and then you're about to get reamed by Kitty Dukakis while the Secret Service is in the room. Staring you down, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, this is bullshit. Because I had to sign a waiver saying that it would be okay I stayed, or it was a big deal. So Kitty destroys me.
What? Is there anything you remember in particular?
Yeah, she said, you are an 18-year-old, 20-year-old know-it-all. I've seen people like you. You're not serious about your recovery, sneaking out. My first day here, a lot of drama.
Yeah.
I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, who the fuck are you? I'm like, lady, I will prevail on this one. You know what I mean? Don't think I won't. You're in my hood.
Yeah.
This is my, you know what I mean? It had come down to that. Like, you're not going to use your weight against my crack weight or my addiction. Like, your addiction isn't any more important than mine. So we had to have that laid out. We move on. Now, 2 weeks later is Kitty Dukakis' peer evaluation.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't you know that we had a TV in the living room of the treatment center, and every night Michael Dukakis was on that TV. I got Michael Dukakis' mannerisms down to a T. Everything. So during Kitty's evaluation, I'm just in character as Michael Dukakis, who's going to do her peer evaluation. Way over the line for the Secret Service, way over the line for the treatment center. And it was, I knew it was going to get me either arrested or something.
Yeah.
So Kitty goes in the room and I come up and I start doing her peer evaluation in character as her husband.
Yeah.
And that lasted about 40 seconds before I was once again grabbed by the Secret Service and removed from the meeting and scolded. And I was like this guy, like, fuck yeah. I'm like, whatever. And they're like, listen, you're fooling with the government. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Do you remember anything with some of the things that you said?
I just told him, I said, I don't give a fuck. That's what I said.
No, to Kitty.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I heard, I don't think it was right that you put wigs on and went to the liquor store and dressed as somebody else. You would go to the liquor store dressed as somebody else to get liquor. And then I would do, who do you think you are, thinking you're more important than another alcoholic and another thing, I can't do Michael right now. I should be able to do him, but And that was enough to really cause a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Did they kick you out, or did
Nope, it became back down to the point of lawsuits and who belonged at Edge Hill More. And my mother was very well connected with everybody.
Yeah.
So it was this power of Kitty Dukakis and Sean Mahoney of who is going to stay. And then the funny thing is we became friends. The third week, we became friends. And like every other story, me and Kitty became really good friends. And we would walk the grounds together holding hands as friends. So they had a picture of us walking hand in hand from the back, holding hands. And then they subsequently put that picture on the front of the foyer at Edge Hill. So when you walked in, you saw Kitty Dukakis' back with me holding hands. So it was pretty cool, you know?
Yeah.
You know, because the treatment center was a moneymaker. It was just a business.
Yeah.
The guy who owned the place ended up doing blow.
Yeah.
So in 1986, I went back to Edge Hill, crack, full on. My addiction had just multiplied.
At that point, did you really want to stop, you know?
No, I didn't want to stop, but my body was shutting down. Everything was, I was being protected. I was doing shit where everyone was protecting me. I was being enabled by everybody, but only enabled to keep me out of trouble or from getting killed or you know, there was a lot of people who loved me. You know what I mean? Just like every drug addict and alcohol out there, there's someone who loves you. Remember that. People care about you. You may not think so. I know I do.
So that was the thing. Like, so there were a lot of people looking out for you. Like, I mean, at that point, I mean, were you just basically, there was no stopping you? Like, unless you
No,
make
there was
that
no
choice?
consequences.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
I'd steal the car. I'd steal the money. If it was later on, by 1983, I mean, 85, nothing was available to take from my house. It was really... You know, I'm embarrassed, you know what I mean? It took me years of shame and years of embarrassment of, you know, because back then, every household had a crackhead. And it was just, they were like, yeah, he's the crackhead in our house. Who's the crackhead in your house? Oh, it's my brother Jimmy.
So every family had a deal
Every
with
family
this.
had a problem with one person, especially with the big families, the Irish families. And the Italian, you know what I mean? Not mostly Italian, mostly the Irish.
Yeah.
We don't get this. Italians seem to keep their shit together.
Man. I mean, but like during this time when you're doing all this stuff to fuel this addiction, I mean, you're also connected with the mob a little bit still, right? Like, how are you using those connections? That seems like if you give...
so let's, real quick. Yeah. I was a busboy at Camille's Roman Garden, okay? That came later on, okay? So... always my thing was dealing weed. I was a brick weed dealer from 15. I was dealing weed. So I had those connections. And then I built bigger weed connections. Then I built bigger weed connections to the point where I was, you know, moving thousands of pounds of weed.
Yeah. And at a certain point, this was just fueling.
Yeah, and the weed, the scams, the insurance scams, the you know, every kind, it was all feeding this lifestyle. And then once you had the money, no one could tell you what to do. Like my family, I would cut them out because once I got the ability to control my own addiction with my own money and my own bravado or whatever it was, then I didn't need them.
Yeah.
But then, you know.
But inevitably, did it always come crashing
always
down?
Came crashing down where I ended up back with them.
Yeah. And then you start taking their shit and stuff like that and doing that kind of thing? Or
well, you know, I would finance my own drug addiction, even if I was with them. And you know, the stealing, you know, had stopped because, you know, that goes along with the beginning of any crack addiction. Yeah. I think stealing. Yeah. So by this time, I'm making money. But it's all an act. Every day's an act. Every day I remember my mom hired this guy to do for me to come back to work at Elizabeth and to be back in the home. They wanted to urine me and take a urine test for me anytime they wanted. My mom was so connected in the city that she had like her own nurse who could pop up at any time who went to AA with her. He was a male gay nurse. And this guy used to go to AA, and I'd go to meetings with him, and he'd be in the meetings with me. But he was the guy my mother hired to do these urine tests to take him back to Rhode Island Hospital. And after a couple of, some small town amount of sobriety, I relapsed. And then I went to a meeting the next day, and they were like, oh, we're going to do a urine test after the meeting at Elizabeth. My heart was like, and this is the stress. I can feel it now. You know what I mean? Of letting my mom down again, of being a fucking drug addict, of just being shameful and living with this. So I didn't want my mom to be upset that she took another chance on me. This was ongoing. Yeah. And the male nurse goes in the bathroom to take the urine test, and I said, hey, how you doing, Joseph? And I looked at Joseph, and Joseph knew who I was and knew who I was connected to. And I said, Joseph, you work at Rhode Island Hospital, don't you? I said, you live on Smith Hill? You live on so-and-so Ave? I said, I'm dirty. And if you take a urine test and tell that lady outside that door that my urine's dirty, I'm going to fuck your world up like nobody's ever fucked it up before. And the kid turned white. I think he almost puked. And I said, I threatened his life. And this is the insanity of addiction. Because I couldn't let that happen. But I had it was just, if that's not insanity, I don't know what is.
But it was multiple examples of this.
Multiple.
And you were constantly bumping up against this. And then there's the ups and downs, because you would clean up for brief periods.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, I'd clean up for 3-4 months and then go back.
And then there's all the shame and regret.
Everything comes right back.
Jeez, what was it that made it so hard to just to be able to be clean for 2 or 3 months? Must have been hard. What were you doing during that time?
Trying to get my dopamine levels back. I could never get. Here's what they don't understand. Relapse is because you can't find happiness. Yeah. Because once you start smoking crack, you just continually to take away your years of upcoming happiness. It's not like you can smoke crack for a month and stop and be happy.
Yeah. It's going to take years.
It's going to take years for your fucking brain to act normal.
Yeah.
So it was a very how I didn't blow my head off is beyond me.
So it would just be depression.
Depression.
And then
in New England depression, I talk about how did I get through the Cold War in New England, like a New England day. Yeah. I would literally smoke crack and put rose-colored glasses on. Yeah. It was so depressing. I wake up in a depression and just have to smoke crack and put rose-colored glasses on to look out at the grayness of New England. And I talk about that as a bit.
Yeah. You actually put on those rose-colored glasses. Yeah. So that climate wasn't necessarily helping you any. Yeah.
Yeah, it was complete insanity.
But here's the other thing. You've always been like a showman, You've been a performer. Like, what was that? When you were hustling and you were making this money and you got all these things.
Everything I did was a show. Yeah. Every deal I made, everyone who gave me, I remember these guys gave me 50 keys. Yeah. 50. Yeah. And I walked out of there with 2 duffel bags and looked at them on the way out and just gave them a smile, and they looked at me and were like, what the fuck did we just do? Did we just give that guy 50 kilos? Yeah. Are you fucking nuts? Yeah. Remember, to whoever out there, this is 1987. Yeah.
But no, because you came up with things. Like, you had marketing ability, Oh,
well, which Instagram.
Yeah. You invented Instagram. Tell us about
that. I am disgruntled, and this is true. In 1982, when I got that half a kilo, the one I talked about that I busted in half, my first kilo, I was like, I got to sell it. I needed cash flow. So I made up cards, and I still have the cards in the scrapbook. And Steve Barub's still got a couple of them because he had his name on it. I believe he had his name on it too. So it said Sean Mahoney, not Sean T. Sean Mahoney. Oh, well, Sean Mahoney Instagram. Call me. I'll have a gram for you instantly. And it had my phone number, my home phone number. And I remember my mother and father flipping out like the phone wouldn't stop. It just wouldn't stop because I'm giving these cards out. Now, literally, I wake up every day as a comedian addicted to Instagram. I don't know. You tell me. That's a little bit of a, that's a switcheroo. That's called the big switcheroo.
You got caught up in your own thing.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And that's a true story.
Yeah, but I would say that this Instagram, the one that you're on your phone with, is arguably worse than
Listen, if we had Instagram back, I would have never smoked crack.
Yeah.
You guys would still be smoking crack crack would still be prevalent and a high priority if you didn't have any Instagram or social media or any of that.
It's the dopamine fix.
Yeah. Still same dopamine, same fix. It's crazy.
Well, I'm curious about like some of the other hustles that you. I know at a certain point, like you were driving like you were always traveling in a limousine. Like there were the periods of
time
too.
where excess in 84 went to 85, 86, and got sober again. Then 85 limousines was my biggest thing.
Yeah. Well, so tell me about the limousines. What were you doing?
I was just driving around doing coke in limos.
Why?
Because I couldn't do it at home.
So you're like, if I'm going to do this,
limousines were my home. Like literally, I had one guy for like 2 days, me and Ricky Shirley. And we had the guy for 2 days. And he didn't do blow. He was just driving us around for 2 days. Newport, Providence, Massachusetts, back to Newport, to the beach. And we were just in the back of this wide body limo, just getting high, drinking Absolute vodka and getting high for days. And the guy was like, listen, I'd be forcing, like, you know what I mean? I'd make 20,000 and, I'd spend it as fast as I could. You know what I mean? And I was a big shot in the 80s. The 80s were all about, look at me. My ego was so big it couldn't even get in the limo door.
Were you like and your mom still was running the Elizabeth during this time,
my
right?
mom kind of looked at this in the back like my mom really got a kick out of me, even though she might have known, like at some point she was like, this is all on you, Sean. You either can handle this, what you're doing, or not. And we're not going to handle the consequences, only you are. So when you make a quick 30,000 on blow and your limousines, you think you can do it forever. And I managed to do it for a good long term.
I mean, during this time too, like you were engaged at a certain point, right?
In 95, I got sober again in 95. And
like, how did that happen? Like, did you ever have girlfriends and stuff like that during this time, or
I had girls that I dated here and there. I dated this blind girl that I dated this girl. This one of my earlier relationships was this really cool girl in my neighborhood. And she was blind, but she was so hot. And she wanted to do coke, and she asked me to do blow. And I said, all right. I said, I'll come over. And she's like, you can come over the house. And she literally said to me, I'll show you how to read Braille. I was like, this wasn't anything uncommon. It was like, great, do some blow and read Braille. So I go over her house, and she lived like right behind Wyman School, like a block away from me. And I go to the door and ring the doorbell, and this lady answers the door. And I'm like, hi, I'm Sean. And I got my hand out. And she's looking at me like this. And I'm like, I'm trying to put my hand out. And then I'm looking at her. And then I realized the mother is blind.
The mother's
blind too. And I got my hand out, and her eyes are like going up and blind and stuff. So finally I was like, all right. I kind of gave her the old... I gave her the old move because I saw her. I think it was Stacy. I can't remember her name. And she was at the top of the stairs, and she's like, Sean. So there was nothing uncommon. See, cocaine took away the normalcy. Like, it was all about doing the next line. Are you blind? Get out of my way. I got to do a line. You know what I mean? And then I went upstairs with her, and, you would think, it was her first time doing blow. I'm not proud of this to the blind community. Please don't cancel me. And I figured I'd give her if someone's blind and you're doing coke, you would think you would take the bigger line. Not me. I'm like, here, take the small one, but I'm giving her the big ones, right? And she's doing blow, and we're getting high, and she's starting to teach me how to read Braille.
She kept her end of the bargain.
She kept her into the pocket.
To this day, you can still read Braille.
I'm all coked out, like going, closing my eyes. I'm going, like I'm trying to read Braille, and she's holding the back of my hand like it's some CBS afternoon special. And, you know, we read Braille for a while. I got to fool around with her.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that went on for a little while. So she was kind of one of my first girlfriends, was the blind girl.
Man.
You know what I mean?
What do you have in common? Cocaine and Braille. That's where we really connected.
And let me tell you, we really did.
Yeah.
You know, cocaine does help you connect. You can talk a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh boy, did she start talking? She couldn't see, but she could talk.
What she lacked in sight, she made up for in talkativeness. Oh man.
Oh my god.
So what? Can you read any Braille now? Like, did you keep any of that now?
Yeah, I used to tell my friends, they're like, "Are you learning Braille?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know how to read fucking everything." I was like, I would just lie.
Oh man.
You know. And then I'd see her at school, and she's like, "How come you never walked me to my class?"
See, if you have a bad breakup with someone with a blind person like that, it's easy to like avoid that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've had that experience once.
Listen, you couldn't avoid her. She could smell me coming. She like, I see her down at the end of the. She go like this. It was like she knew I was coming.
You just have that kind of personality.
Yeah,
where, like,
she knew
people could
my
take-
energy.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
she
yeah.
could feel the electricity. You know what I mean?
Oh man. So like, I mean, were there any other really? Because I know eventually you were engaged.
Yeah, you know, and of course, once cocaine came into play, and this is no bullshit, folks. I had red hair, freckles. I looked really creepy. Most redheads were treated like the demons that we are. But they would just torture you. If you were a ginger or a redhead, the only reason I became tough is because the beatings were going to begin if I didn't start to learn how to throw a haymaker. You know, so it was rough with the redheaded thing.
Yeah. No, that's a discriminated community right there, man.
Yeah, man. I had to rise above, so I couldn't get any love except for my girl, the blind girl. And you know,
did she know that you were a ginger?
The reason she went with me is because she was blind. She could hear ginger or red hair, but she couldn't really see it.
That's a great way of putting it.
So I got away with that one.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, like what other relationships? Like,
you know, I had and cocaine changed things around. I remember going to high school parties in '84, and I used to throw these keg parties, and girls that would never make out with me, were leaving the jocks to come to my parties and do blow and make out with me. Yeah. But I would be so coked out, I'd be like, no, it was really, you couldn't really make out on coke because you were so fucking, you couldn't feel your face, so you couldn't feel the make out. It was like a weird situation. So it kind of took coke took it, you know, I don't know. It kind of took the front out of it a little, you know.
So you must have been the only kid in high school dealing coke who had access like that. I mean,
there were two. No, there was this. What was his name? There was this Italian kid. He was big into it, and. So it was me, him, a few other my buddies. We were all like a crew. We had a crew of 7 or 8, and we were all flush with coke. Yeah. By '84, it was like, don't be a chump, give me a bump, and that's in math class. Yeah. It's not like you're backstage at the Comedy Store. This was math class.
Man, I didn't realize cocaine, in high. So do you think that was pretty normal, in high schools in America in the '80s, that kids were just doing?
Fuck coke? Yeah. You would not think. But because I lived it, everyone got involved in it at some point. If the jocks did it, if I sold coke to the jocks, they would swear, Sean, swear to me you're not going to tell anybody you sold me coke. And they would do it in their little preppy parties in their suburban bigger man houses. And they would have, but then you'd have those Motley Crue 80s guys at the lower fucking parties that I would show up to. You know what I mean?
So everybody was doing coke.
Everybody was doing.
So you were snorting it too, and you would do both?
Yeah, like I would get off the freebase or the
Yeah.
crack, and then I'd try to snort it for a while, then I'd go back on the
Oh, I
crack. So
see.
there was this
Yeah.
peaks and valleys.
Did you recognize that like crack was worse, like that you needed to get off of it?
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
kinda-
Like California sober
Yeah.
is just smoking weed and maybe doing a mushroom. Back in the 80s, Rhode Island sober was not smoking crack, but you could do a few bumps and drink.
Yeah.
That was Rhode Island sober.
So you were always, that's what you wanted to be, Rhode Island sober.
Yeah, so my goal was to just be able to drink and do blow and not smoke crack.
Yeah.
But that never worked. It always led back to smoking coke.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your fiance. How'd you guys meet? Like, was she blind too?
Carrie's not blind. Carrie. Well, Carrie was the first love of my life. Carrie Curcio. She's from Warwick, Rhode Island. Beautiful girl. She's got a great family now. I've made amends to Carrie as we tell the story. I want you all to know I made a very big amends to her. Whether I think she forgave me. So I got engaged. I was sober for like, my father passed away in 95. And after my father passed away, I came back from Breckenridge, Colorado, where they shipped me off to Breckenridge to get off coke. It was like, that was another geographical cure, they called it.
Yeah. So during all this time, I mean, your family was doing everything they could to try to get you to stop.
Yeah.
But it was just, you weren't ready for that. Yeah.
You're not ready till you're ready.
Yeah.
And
But so like part of this is like leading up to that. We're getting close to, you stopped in 95. That's when the crack ended, you know? So
September of 95, I was engaged to Carrie Curcio, came back from Block Island after working all summer and buying a new car and finding my mother turned over Elizabeth to me. She gave it to me and Carrie. She's like, this is your nest egg. This is your future. And now I had seen a different light. I was 28 years old. I had this beautiful girl. I was starting to become credible, more credible than ever. My mother gave me Elizabeth. That was a sign to the community that I was ready. And very unfortunate, after 6 months of being with Carrie, we went back to Rhode Island. I subsequently relapsed. And I started to sneak it in the bathroom of this small apartment with Carrie and my new dog. Carrie was very much in love with me. And I just, for some reason, the pain inside was like I wasn't physically able to accept happiness. My body and my mind still thought I wasn't worthy of anything good.
yeah.
And after 3 days of smoking crack every night in the bathroom, I kept waking her up because I kept flushing the toilet because you do crazy shit on crack.
Yeah.
And she knocked on the door and she fucking ripped the door open. And as she was doing that, I put a can that was smoking of crack in the medicine cabinet. So when she opened the door, I'll try to find some funny in this.
Yeah.
That the crack was coming out, and she opened up the medicine cabinet, and there was a crack pipe, and the room was full of crack, and I was acting like Gollum, and she was like, she just went into a panic, took the dog and screwed. I went into a complete devastating addiction. Like at that point, now she's left. Now I'm caught smoking crack. The girl I love just left me with my dog. My mom's going to find out tomorrow. My family, my friends, my neighbors. So I just said, I'm going to commit suicide on crack. And I started smoking more, like just intentionally trying to commit suicide and have a heart attack, which on the second day, I eventually had a heart attack. And I went into a full cocaine seizure. Got into my car, how I did this, and drove all the way down Broad Street in a fucking seizure like this. I remember my chin couldn't get out of I couldn't get my chin down because I was seizing, but I was somehow driving the car, and I made it all the way to Rhode Island Hospital, where I crashed right into the fucking front gate of the emergency room almost. And they saved my life. more white privilege bullshit, and went into the hospital, and where, of course, I knew the nurse and everyone knew me, and it was just another real tragic, maybe needing attention at that point, because I knew she was gone. So I was like, I'm going to do everything to get some kind of attention back out of this. Maybe that was insane. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I had a heart attack, and I stayed 2 days in the hospital.
You were 28 at this time, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
29, because I turned 29 that summer.
Yeah.
And so she came to the hospital
Yeah.
to my side and gave me another chance. She came to myself, but she didn't move back in the house. She gave me another chance that she knew it was over, but I think she was having mercy on me, that she knew that if she left me totally, that I might just leave the hospital and kill myself.
Yeah.
And that's where I was at. Like like the depression, you go so low that everything is just can't be rebuilt.
Yeah, no, you know what it is? Like, because this is something I've experienced. I've been, like, severely depressed and all this. Like, you know, it's like what goes up must come down. Like, there's a balance to everything, you know? When you smoke, do drugs that are going to take you that high to that, you're going to experience the equivalent, the mirror version of that on the other side, which is the low, you know? And that low is really, not everybody can survive that low. And that's what brings you back to it, why you can't get out of it. Because, like you said, it took you 5 years, right? After you finally finished everything to be able to feel normal, to have a normal experience of what, I don't know, maybe joy is the word of what joy is, you know? I mean, it's interesting that joy is one of those words because...
Well, joy is overrated. Yeah, and happiness is overrated.
Yeah, yeah.
And I enjoy my life. I like my life now, but my life isn't all happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
I deal with demons just in sobriety, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny. Like, I wasn't planning to go into this, but you've probably, maybe you know that book, The Power of Now. Have you
I haven't read it.
Okay, it's a pretty, like, profound book. Eckhart Tolle wrote it, and it's really about this idea of being present and the duality of things, right? That the opposite always exists. So if you're seeking pleasure, then you're going to experience pain. Like, these both things have to exist. Like, one can't really exist without the other.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this idea, but real happiness or joy doesn't really have an opposite. It just exists on its own. It doesn't come with the opposite inevitably. It's this sustainable thing.
There it is.
Yeah.
So when you go in these peaks and valleys of drug addiction that deals with your dopamine levels, you are fighting a battle. You know what it's like? It's like being in a 12-foot boat in 20-foot seas. And you got to constantly hit the wave and not give up and just jump off the boat and drown because you're like, and that's, I got to be honest, I don't know how I dug deep. It was the help of my mom, the help of a few people that cared about me and said, we love you, we care about you. We don't want to see you this way. But in my mind, the shame of crack addiction was like, everyone doesn't want me around anyways because I'm just a fuck up. You know what I mean? And that's a really... You know, I think what drug addiction is that there's a lot of sympathy for the devil that has to go into it. The devil is taking over that human body.
Yeah.
And you've got to have sympathy for that guy because he's now owned by the devil. He can get his soul back. I got mine back. Yeah. You know? So, but that's like down to the nitty gritty of addiction, where now addiction is so widespread, rampant, that we don't even care anymore. Back then, we cared about the human. The family cared. Now, it's like you've getting lost in a river that's rushing. So if you go to drug addiction now, you're down the river. No one's going to save you. Maybe if you come from a privileged family, they'll do what they did for me.
Wow. But that person is still in there. No, and we look at homelessness. We live in LA, obviously. We see how deep it gets.
Well,
and no, there's a lot of. Is that where it would have led?
Oh,
for sure, right?
That would have been the easiest. If I ended up on the streets of LA in a tent, that would have been the nicest that could have happened to me. The best. you know, but it would have still ended bad, you know. But you sacrifice the the most important things to me now are peace of mind, a roof over my head, a quality set of sheets and a down comforter, a TV that works, in the basics that everybody needs, just the basics.
Yeah.
I don't need any more than the basics. And that is what I had to learn, that I watched money corrupt, and I just want to be simple. Yeah. It's hard because in Hollywood, you know, your life could, you know, it's in, you know, I say that, but, you know, money corrupts and you know what I mean? And power, you know, you start thinking you're something you're not, you know. I think it's always keeping your ego at check, especially in this business.
No, I mean, that's for somebody who's experienced extreme highs and extreme lows, it seems like that's the wisdom that came out of all of that.
Yeah.
And most people have access to that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you have everything really that you need to be okay, actually. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who, you know, I'll mention Al Bucco, my dearest friend, stuck by me. Buddy Cianci stuck by me. Ruth Mahoney stuck by me. Art Boffey stuck by me. Kimberly and Norman Ward. But for the grace of God, I had them in my life over the years, you know.
So you were lucky in a lot of ways.
I was lucky that people didn't really turn their back on me and always let me say, I'm sorry and please forgive me. And they were like, you don't have to say sorry to us, Sean. You're killing yourself. And they said, if we could have a camera of what you were like last night, you'd never do drugs again. That was the biggest thing. Cameras are everywhere now. They weren't everywhere back then. If they would have had a camera on me of how I acted on crack, very, very sad.
Well, so how did it end? Because you stopped smoking crack in 95.
Yeah. So after
the day the crack died, let's hear it.
Well, we got one more story, I guess, before that.
Okay.
Unless you want to go right to where the crack died.
No, let's go, because basically
So I had the heart attack.
Yeah.
My fiance came back.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't move back in with me. Yeah. And I did everything I could. I got a condo. I did everything for her to come back to me, and that wasn't going to happen. She wasn't prepared for that. And I wasn't prepared for her not to want to come back to me. So there it is. More self, you know, like if you're not going to come back to me, I guess I got nothing to live for. So after being good for an additional 4 months after the heart attack, I opened up Z Bar and Grill with Kevin Kaloran. He was the owner. He hired me as his right-hand man to run the place with him. I also was running Elizabeth at the same time. Shooters, a club called Shooters on the waterfront in Providence, now I'm in control of that as well, managing that. So I'm extremely busy and not in any trouble.
Are you clean at this point?
I'm clean.
Okay.
But I'm around all this alcohol and all of this nightlife.
Yeah.
So Kerry, and I knew she wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
So one night at Z Bar with Gene Hemingway, who died of drugs, the best chef in the world, drugs took him. We started drinking Bass Ale. You know, late night at the bar. All right, I'll have a couple of Basses. By 2 o'clock, we had an 8-ball of crack, and we were in the basement of the old Manny's Almeida Tavern smoking crack on Wickenden Street in Providence. My boss, Kevin, he would have killed me. Gene goes home at 6 in the morning. I call my fiance, fucked up. I'm like, I gave her an ultimatum. Either you come back to me, like really douchebag behavior, folks. Either you come back to me or else, I guess, I'm going to fucking kill myself. And she's like, Sean, don't. I said, I'm coming over. And she lives in Walpole, Mass. Now I got a fucking 38, a bottle of vodka, and I've been smoking crack for the last 5 hours. I got no cocaine in the car. And I go to her house, like, I don't know what I was thinking. But now I'm in the spirals of drugs again and depression. and this is another shameful situation. I was driving into Walpole, and there's a red light on like a highway, and the red light had like 20 cars stopped at the red light, and I just fucking floored my car into all of those vehicles. And but for the grace of God, I didn't kill anybody, and my car went like this on side and then crashed into another area, and I only demoed 2 other cars, and thank God those people weren't hurt. So this was the beginning of the day. I'm already crashing cars into other cars, jeopardizing people's lives. And to be quite honest, I probably would have been in jail for 10 years just for that offense. Where after I crashed the car, the ambulance comes and they know I'm drinking, but I get right in the ambulance and they take me to the hospital. And when I get to the hospital, they get me in the room and they're like, keep him in the room. State police are on their way. And I fucking just jetted. I just fucking said to the lady, I got to go fucking to the bathroom. And I fucking ran in a gurney. I ran into the parking lot where my fiance had heard it on the CB radio in Walpole, because small town, and her parents are buried in that town. And she heard about the accident and knew I was on the way. She came to the hospital. So I come running out into the parking lot in a gurney like a fucking mental man. I jump into her car and I said, go. She's like, now I got her in a complete state of there's no way out of this. I was really, just a scumbag of a scumbag. And only cared about me. Go. She's like, she has no idea. She knows I got in an accident. She didn't know I did it on purpose. Now we're driving on 95, getting back to Providence. Now they catch up with us. They see us leaving. Like I get in her car, the nurses and stuff are outside, and they're like, get the plate number. They got the car. Now I'm like, just get me to the Providence line. Once I get to Providence, I'm home free. Buddy's there. My family, they'll take mercy on me. Well, the fucking cops pulled Mass State Police pulled right behind the car. And when they pull behind the car, I'm like, oh, I'm going to jail. Like it's all like she's in a mental. Now she's doing like 45 miles an hour and slowing down for the cops. I jump out of the vehicle at 45 miles an hour and do like this. I hit the fucking pavement and I do like this spin and I land. And this is no word of a lie. I land like a popsicle stick in a snowbank on the side of the road as the fucking state police are going by, and they're like, and that's when I hit the bank. When I landed like a popsicle stick, I was like, God was like, I'm not killing you. Like he literally said, I'm not killing you. And I fucking was like, what the fuck? And I was really mad. I was mad I didn't get run over. And I'm like, now the chase is on. Like, I got to continue this I run down this big embankment to the fucking, Bed Bath & Beyond. And I went in there and told these 2 girls at Bed Bath & Beyond that I was having a mental breakdown and I need fucking my friend to pick me up here and just please don't tell anyone I'm here. And these 2 girls took mercy on me and put me in the back room of Bed Bath & Beyond and hid me there while the fucking state police were asking everybody on the thing. I didn't try to bribe them. I just was in such a state. And and then Kevin Kaloran, the owner of Z-Bar, where I started smoking crack, fucking came and rescued me.
You got out of that?
Now hear me out. I got out of it. Kevin came to Bed Bath & Beyond. I got in the car. They took me home. Yeah. They immediately put a warrant out on me.
Yeah.
That warrant didn't catch up to me till 3 years later. And by that time, I had enough connections to get it squashed.
Damn.
And that's what happened there. And Kerry, I've made an amends to you and, and to everybody out there who wants to go through that kind of shame and torture people and, and emotionally ruin their lives and stuff. And that was a lot to get over. And I'm still dealing with the pain I've caused people. And a comedy is my way out.
Yeah.
Rather than going backwards into poor me and what I did, I'm using it as a catapult to, I love serving people. And if anyone knows me, I love serving. But it's helping me, stay on a good, a good path. That's a lot, folks.
He's usually a lot funnier than this, by the way.
We had a couple of laughs in there, didn't
Yeah. All right, look, we're going to... So, 1985 to...
95.
95, sorry.
82 to 95.
82 to 95. So, 1995. So, tell us about that. When did it finally end? The crack. When did it finally...
Okay, this is the last hurrah. Yeah. Was 95. I'm at City Hall, and I had business at City Hall, and I had a meeting with the mayor and a few other people. In that meeting, they were like always seeing how I was doing. Are you doing okay? And a lot of times I just show up to City Hall just to be part of what was happening. Yeah. So when they said, how you doing? Everything's good. I said, yeah, Mayor. I said, everything's good. Everything's fine. And he said, okay. And I left City Hall and I walked out the door and I ran into another kid who owed me a lot of money. It was like $900. And he saw me and he like froze up and was like freaked out because he had been blowing me off. I didn't even care. And he came up to me with an ounce of Coke right in front of City Hall. And he's like, I'm sorry I can't pay you, but here, take this. And he gives me an ounce of blow.
And you had been cleaned up. How long had you been cleaned up until this point?
Oh, maybe another... Yeah. Just a couple of months.
Yeah, but that's all it would take, obviously, to get you back
and
on.
So the first thing I did was like I looked over to the store, and I there was no thinking.
So as soon as it hit your hand, it was already...
As soon as it hit my hand, I just left the most important people in the city and said, I'm okay. And then I go and get this in my hand. It's in my pocket now. I'm like, I go get baking soda, I go get a cigar tube, and I go get... everything I need to, and I go right to the Marriott and rent a room at the Marriott.
So you get all that stuff to cook it?
To cook it.
Okay.
So I get in the room and I get everything together, and this was a ritual. It was a ritual that I did everything. Then I would like examine the room, but I would never check under the bed first. I'd always wait to take a hit of crack before I looked under the bed.
That's part of the ritual?
It was part of the ritual.
Yeah.
Never looked under the bed before the hit. Yeah. Always paranoid after the hit and looked under the bed.
Yeah.
So I take this big hit in the Marriott, not more than an hour after I left the mayor's office. I'll never forget it. I take this huge hit of crack, and I go right into paranoia because all the weight of me trying to be responsible. And once you smoke, it's a relapse, and now you're back to square one again. It's like a gambler who just lost his house. And I blow this hit out, and I look under the bed like I always did. And underneath the bed of the hotel was another bag of crack that wasn't mine. It wasn't mine.
And this is just coincidence.
Just coincidence that maybe somebody was doing a drug deal and left it under the bed, said rent the room, go pick up the Coke, whatever the deal was. And I fucking went into a paranoid schizophrenia. I'm like, they know, everyone knows. I thought cameras were on me. I strip all my I take another hit of crack. See, this is what doesn't stop. Even though all this is going on, I still got to take another hit of crack to keep this insanity going. I take another hit of crack. I strip all my clothes off, except for the lighter in my hand and the crack pipe burning my hand in this hand. And I run down the hallway and I fucking run down the stairs and I run right through the lobby naked, holding the crack pipe and the lighter, completely in a paranoid schizophrenia meltdown. And I start running right into Kennedy Plaza. And it was kind of a blackout. I don't remember it. I only remember when I kind of came out of this mental, like towards my business. So I'm running. And apparently the secretary, who looks like Steph Zammo, the exact look of Steph Zammo, says, Mayor, didn't Sean Mahoney just say everything was okay? And her window looked over Kennedy Plaza. And she said, Sean's running through Kennedy Plaza naked right now.
Just like Steph Zammo is a comic. She's married to Jimmy Dore. That's right, right?
Really cool,
yeah,
great person.
And she's a fourth wall regular too.
Yeah.
So that's where we know Steph Zammo.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the secretary sees this. Like, you had just come from a meeting earlier that day. You had been keeping it together. You're in the mayor's office. You're connected there now. And then all it took,
I'd always been connected.
You had always been connected, but things were looking good. I mean, you were doing better. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, and at this time you were also running shooters. You were running your mom's play, Elizabeth's, and the Zebras.
But I was going up and down with shooters. They had to get a manager to cover me for a while, and then I'd go back and oversee it from afar. And so I was in a paranoid schizophrenia running through the city, and the mayor called the police, and the cops pulled up next to me. I got to South Water Street, which is on the Providence River, and they pulled up left and right to me. And they were like, Sean, and they were friends of mine. The cops were friends. I knew the cops. And they said, Sean, the mayor was literally on the speaker of the cop car. And he's like, Sean, it's the mayor. Stop. It's okay. These guys aren't we're here to help. Just drop it. And I wouldn't drop the crack pipe of the lighter because I thought if I did, they would arrest me and put me in jail. That's the paranoia, although they were trying to help me. So they followed me all the way to Elizabeth's, and in front of all my neighbors, in front of my lawyer, in front of Superior Court, and in front of the condominium complex, in front of the Indian restaurant and everything, I came out of the blackout with the cops pulling up with me, and they escorted me to get the key so I could get into the bar where I had an extra set of clothes. And that's when I had a breakdown in the bar, and they called my mother, they called the mayor, and those two cops, they came in and they said, and I was I just couldn't, it had ended in the way it was supposed to end. It was the last, I don't know. It was a very sad, you know what I mean? It was very, once again, it's the shame and I have to look back and say, when I tell the story, the privilege is resonating with you guys. I know that. I don't know how to say it any other way but the truth. Other people didn't get the breaks I got. And that's why I try to give back a little bit here and there when I can.
But that was the incident. That's when it really stopped.
So that was the last day I smoked crack. Last day.
And I know, like, that
I continued to do powder till 2002.
Yeah, but somehow you were able to just completely stop the crack after that.
Yeah.
What was it about that incident that just made it like I'm not touching crack
Insanity.
again? Yeah.
The insanity of it all.
Yeah.
Like how insane it was.
So going into that state of mind
So let's say I would have relapsed in Massachusetts at a hotel. If the story wouldn't have ended the same, I might have done 20 years in a Mass State prison. So because it happened in Providence, I had the help.
Yeah. So you were protected in a lot of ways. People were looking
very
after you.
protected, insulated.
But that finally...
And that also went against me because there was so many times I was caught red-handed and I threw my weight around and I got out of it.
Yeah. Whereas if you had been
if I was a normal, regular, everyday guy, I would have gone to jail many times. I would have got repetitive offenses on drugs, but because I was connected, I got off.
And you feel a little bit of guilt about that.
Oh yeah, I carry a lot of guilt. I try not to. But I carry a lot of guilt, You
think it's like did you grow up Catholic?
Yeah, but it's not Catholic. It's more shame.
Yeah.
It's more that now that I'm a comedian and all of this is, I'm telling my story.
Yeah.
It's not a proud story. Yeah. This is so, maybe someone can receive a message that if you're in the throes of addiction, that if I can do it, you can.
Yeah. No, that message is there. I mean, it takes, from the way you've described that level of addiction and what it can do to you, it also, and in addition to having people who stand by you the whole time, who really care about you, who don't turn their backs on you, you got to have some kind of strength in you to come out of that. Because ultimately that's what it's going to take, because no one else can do it for you. But there's a lot of people who go through that and never come out of that.
Yeah, listen, like I said, sobriety was a tough swim. tough. You couldn't give up. The waves are whacking you. You just keep going, and then it calms down. And then you do the breaststroke for a while.
And I think that's the key point right there, because I imagine when you're going through that, because you went through it over and over again before it finally took.
Yeah, when I
right?
say I'm a professional, meaning it was like going into a ring with Joe Louis every time.
Yeah.
And Joe Louis would kick the shit out of me, and I'd come out of the ring and go, "Oh my God, I can!" And then, in psychologically, I'm like, "I'm not gonna let Joe Louis kick my ass." And
so
that
you get
was
back
the devil
in there.
going, "Are you gonna let Crack kick your ass?" And I'm like, "Fuck, Crack, no way! I'm too tough for Crack."
I think there's a stubbornness too. I think it's interesting that tenacity, that ability to like take a beating and then go back out, and it takes a certain amount of pride too to be like, no, I'm not fucking going out like that. I'm getting back in there. I think it does connect to comedy, because you need to have that mentality to be able to put up with the beatings that you take doing comedy. You know all about it. We both know all about it.
But I'm used to all of the grind, all the negative part of comedy that comes along with open mics and personalities and the competition of it. That people say it's not a competition. Well, I seem to disagree sometimes.
That's always under
there's some
the
level
surface,
of competition.
Of
People want to, I'm older. I'm a late bloomer in comedy. I've been busting jokes for a while or making people laugh, but when you get into the community of comedy, it's like any other community. It's like, I want to be the best stockbroker. I want to be the best baseball player. I want to be this, you know what I mean? So it takes work. Some people, it takes work to be anything, to be a good bass player, guitar player, a bricklayer.
Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah. Or somebody who lays wallpaper.
Or wallpaper over. My bricklaying buddies would be all pissed off about that. Well, I'm sorry.
You fooled us, Sean.
Frankie, I'm fucking sorry. What can I tell you?
In 4K, this is not going to be believable. We should have shot it at a lower resolution.